I'm Entendre, and today we're going to talk about some beat making techniques, and I'm going to be creating a beat from scratch that sounds something like this. So yeah, follow along, and we're just going to build this from the ground up. So here we go. I'm going to offer some tips and techniques along the way and ideas. Some of the things I use more often than others, but it's good to be aware of the features. So there's a lot of different ways to make beats. I mean, you can put drum samples on different tracks in Simpler. You could put drum tracks on their individual audio tracks and make them audio and layer them that way. All different ways have different advantages. So, I mean, we're just going to start with something basic here. So I'm going to go to my library. I type kick up here, and I'm just going to search through some kicks. So we're going to be making kind of a broken beat, kind of slow, groovy rhythm. That would be good for dub, maybe even future bass, or who knows where it's going to go. We're going to see. I guess you know, because I edited it in. So if you could fill me in. Alright, I'm trying to find something that's not really a kick pattern. I mean, I could just take a kick from a pattern, but alright, we're going to take this pattern. Alright, so that's pretty interesting. It sounds rather processed. We could work with that. It's kind of a groove. Alright, so that's one thing to keep in mind when you're making a beat, is there's different groove options. So, I mean, right now we're on 72 BPM. That's one tempo I like to work in. I also like working at 80 or 88 or sometimes like 104. Just really depends. It could be 94, 96. The tempo definitely changes the groove, but what I was about to go into was the groove pool. And so I have a couple loaded up here. We have the 8th swing. So if I quantize this, you can quantize audio in Ableton. So you just select it and hit Command U. So that's with the 8th swing. It turns it into like a triplet feel. And I mean, it's hard to hear on this beat. Alright, we're going to layer some actual kick in here. So then I just drag this down, creates another audio track. Now this is my default audio rack. You'll notice that I cut the bass and the highs by default, and then you can adjust it here. And as a matter of fact, I'll give this away as a free download on my website with this video. But it's just some audio things that I use often, some utilities. You know, I can control the volume here, which helps with mixing. That way, if I automate it, then I can still change the levels here without overriding the automation. So there's the volume, there's the bass, the highs, stereo width, a compressor, the glue compressor, a reverb, delay, and this modifies the timing of the delay. So that's fun. But yeah, it's cutting the bass. When you're doing a kick drum pattern, you want to keep in mind that it's going to be interacting with whatever bass you have in your track. So if you're going to have a super subby bass in the track, then your kick probably shouldn't be super subby. Whereas if you're gonna not have any super sub bass and you're just gonna have more mid basses, then you can have a more bassy kick. There's also side chaining, different ways around that, but that's a basic rule to follow. So yeah, we're just gonna load this kick drum here. Let's hear this. Okay, so that's just a regular 4 on the floor beat, which sounds pretty cool, but I said we were gonna make broken beat. So, I mean, we could actually just drag these around and make it broken beat. Or we could slice it up. So, I think I'm just going to drag it around here. And then select all this. So, yeah, switching between windows, you just hit Tab for new Ableton users. You can do that while dragging. What I like about dragging your beats in as audio this way is you can reverse it really easily. I'm just going to drag this marker down. Okay. So now I'm just experimenting, which is a big part of the beat making process. So I have a loop going, you know, if I get tired of this loop, I can extend it out and just kind of double it and then modify this end. Okay. So I'm going to label these kick, and this is like, I don't know, SFX. Okay, so I'm going to EQ this effect, take out all the bass here, and then yeah, so we have the bass and this effect. Now I don't know what kick this is even, but we can see the sonic spectrum here. If I turn off the EQ, it sounds like this. It's a pretty subby kick. You can see it's basically just a sine wave. But I'm cutting out a lot of the subs so that when I layer it with a bass, the bass will really cut and it'll give more contrast. So when it's just a beat, it won't be quite as bassy, and so when the bass drops in, it's going to be more of an impact. So now I'm going to layer in some hi-hats. Oh, that's nice. I'm just going to drag this loop down. Now, it sounds like it was made to go with it, but I'm just going to quantize it. I'm going to go up here and join these by pressing Command J. I'm going to select all this and quantize it. And then I'm going to join all this kick pattern and quantize it. And now I'm going to select all of this, and we can try some different grooves here. So I'm going to try the 8th swing. So it turned it into a triplet groove. It's totally strange, but you know, you can see the potential there. You could have a breakdown that goes into triplet or whatever. Okay, so I'm just gonna select this part and rejoin it because it's being weird. Okay, quantize it. We're gonna select these and we're gonna try a different groove here. We're gonna try the 16th swing. Now that's a nice groove. Kind of sounds dancehall influenced, but okay. So, you know, sometimes I like to make beats with the swing and sometimes not. So, I mean, here it is without any swing. Okay. I liked it better with the swing for sure. We could also go up here into the Live 8 library. I'm going to close this. We're going to go into the grooves and we could browse more grooves here and just drag them onto the clip. And then we can select them all and it'll be available here. So we have Hip Hop 3. That sounds pretty cool. There's so many different options here. Okay, so, you know, you can see how you could spend days just switching between different grooves in the groove pool. I'm just going to go with this basic 16th swing. I'm going to extend this pattern out. Okay, and then I go into this hi-hat pattern. I'm going to use this rack to just EQ out all the lows. Alright, so, you know, you just do that to taste, whatever you like. So, I also often find myself turning the hi-hats down a lot. I find that they're one of the most over-volumed things. Most commonly too loud in the mix would be hi-hats and snare. I mean, I like a good snare that has a nice pop or a crack or a crinkle or a crunch, but it doesn't have to be dominating. So, you know, those highs can be piercing, especially on a big system. So I like to tone my hi-hats down about the bare minimum I can possibly hear it. And then, you know, another important thing that I do with my tracks is have them mastered by somebody else because, you know, it helps to get another set of ears on your track. Sometimes you're so close in working on it that you can't really hear all the subtle details. So it's good to send it off. But yeah, now we're going to add a snare drum. Well, that, and I don't have the mastering software I would want right now, so I'm not really trying to master my own tracks. I usually just throw a basic rack on there that compresses it pretty heavily so I can hear what it would sound like. It's like the Ableton's standard, like aggressive mastering for dance or something. And that usually gets it sounding pretty good. But I find that when I send it off for mastering, it comes back sounding even better. So, I mean, and I'm not surprised. I don't like try and customize it at all. So now we're going to mix in some snare drums. So I'm going to go to all samples here. And find a snare drum we like. I kind of like the stick clack. So Alright, so for this kind of beat, we're going to move it out. And make this kind of more of a dancehall pattern even. Okay, so there's our basic pattern. And now I'm going to reverse this and turn it way down. That creates a nice effect. It's one of the nice things of working in audio. A lot of times I will do drum racks too, though. So we're going to call this snare. This is hi-hats. Now, I didn't customize these hi-hats very much, so I mean, normally I would write a hi-hat pattern, but in the name of saving time, I just thought it sounded pretty good. But we could slice it up to a MIDI track and rearrange it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to slice it. I'm going to mute that track. And you can see it's sliced all the notes into MIDI. Just going to quantize those and set it to our 16th groove here. Duplicate that out. Now I can go in here and change the pattern if I'd like. So I just like to go in and sequence stuff like this sometimes. Duplicate notes across, select them all. Holding Command, you can click and drag in here and create a velocity change. Just want to find a nice sounding note for that fill. Yeah. Yeah, it's starting to sound better, more unique. That compared to, yeah, it's definitely. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And normally I would save different versions. If I was going to delete a track, then I can get back to it if I wanted to get to, see the original there. I'm going to delete this empty MIDI track up here. And then I create a MIDI track down here, which was kind of inefficient looking back. Now we're going to create a drum rack here. And I'm just going to find some like hand drum percussion, so maybe some conga. And I'm going to drag these down onto this drum rack. This dumb rack. And we're going to record enable this. And just going to play it in on the QWERTY keyboard. I have this enabled up here so I can just jam it in. Just got to find the right octave by hitting Z and X. But I got lucky. Just finding a pattern I like. Okay, so we're just going to record in a pattern. Okay, good enough. I'm just going to quantize this. Changing these to different hits so it sounds a little bit more natural. You can also vary up the velocity here. Yeah. Now I'm gonna go in here. Okay, so they do have velocity by default, so that's good. Otherwise I was gonna turn this up and then just kind of copy the value to siblings so it has more velocity responsiveness. Making up words. So now we have a little conga pattern. I'm going to turn this down a bit. I'm also, so it has an EQ on. That's without. Here's with. I'd probably EQ it out just to leave more room for the bass and the drums. Might even EQ it more. You just have to keep in mind that the sonic space, you know, when you're working in digital audio, every sound has to occupy its own sonic space. If you have two different sounds in the same frequency range, then they're going to be clashing and canceling each other out because there's going to be inverted phases interacting with each other and interfering with each other. And sometimes that can cause cool sounds, flangey sounds and distortion, but, you know, only, you know, when it's not intentional, well, it's just good to be aware of as you're mixing tracks, to have everything kind of occupy its own sonic space. So the snare and congas are kind of in the mids. We got the hi-hats, and then this sound. I mean, this is just kind of, probably don't even need that, but it adds a subtle little texture. Just kind of layered with the kick. So I'd probably turn this clack down too. Doesn't need to be so loud. I often mix my tracks at -6 dB, so I'll just take everything and turn it down. Give myself plenty of headroom, and then when I master it, or when someone else masters it, it boosts it way, way up. And that's fine. Like, I'll just go ahead and throw on my default mastering rack. See, it gets way louder. Okay, we're gonna turn that off. Okay. So we're getting a bit of a beat going on here. I just drag that over and then I switch this over to the arrangement view. So we're hearing what's in this view, and can start making more edits here. So I just held Option and clicked on that to bring them all down. You can hold Option and click on it to collapse them all. So that's a good tip for Mac users. I mean, the key is pretty similar on the PC. I think it's Alt, I don't know. But all right, here's our beat. We can okay, something went awry there. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do some editing here. Let's see. We're gonna double this. Now, one thing I might do is layer some more drum or some more snare sounds. So, just gonna go ahead and create an instrument rack. Not an external instrument rack. Okay, and we're gonna put a simpler, and so now I'm just gonna drag the snare sound. Well, no, actually we're gonna use a new snare sound to layer with it. Okay. There's like a whole biker gang driving past my apartment right now. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, back to the beats. So, I'm just gonna preview some snares. A lot of times I like to use not your average snare, so I might find like leaves or something. Oh, there's your thumb. Okay, we'll use this pack from the Novature sample pack from, or this sound from the Gravita's sample pack. So here we go. So we're gonna layer this with our snare drum here to create kind of this organic crunchiness. All right. So yeah, field recordings, great to have. Now again with the crunch, don't want it to be too overwhelming. It's good to be subtle. We can hear them together. So you can see that adds a lot of depth. Okay, so now I'm gonna layer like a bass over this just to hear what it sounds like. Just gonna drag Serum over here. Alright, so if we did like a really subby bass now, we could probably get away with it just because there's not a lot of bass. I'm just chopping this in on the keyboards and having fun. We could also use some kind of FM whoppy bass here. Something more mid-range. Now if I can just turn on the sub bass here, fill out the sound, or I could create a new layer and make a sub bass all its own. Alright, now we're going to layer another bass. Yeah, some respace neuro kind of stuff I made recently. Serum. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's basically it. It's really up to you how you mix things, and it goes track by track. One way I like to mix my bass, I've found that mixing the sub bass about -12, maybe even -14, whereas I'm mixing the kick drum at like -6, creates a good balance. Otherwise, yeah, the sub bass can sometimes get way too intense on stage with the PA system. So yeah, I used to mix the sub bass louder, and then I found that it was just too much. So yeah, keep your sub bass, at a reasonable level, and layer your mid basses on top of that. I would also keep them, I like to keep everything kind of subtle and smooth as I build it. So shaving off a lot of the unnecessary highs and unnecessary lows, just keeping the most important, one sound should be making the sub bass at any given time, whether it's, part of the rhythm or part of the bass line. It's up to you. And yeah, so those are my tips and tricks for making beats. There may be more to come. We'll see how the response goes on these. And yeah, please subscribe. Definitely have more videos on the way. And check out my music. It's all free or name your price on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and yeah, just look for Entendre. There's links in the description. And until next time, have a great day. Thanks for watching.